Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. So good to see everybody out here tonight. Let me know where you're writing in from. Let me know where you're calling in from. Again, we are here tonight on a Friday night talking about a lot of important stuff, man. The most important thing that we're talking about right now, it's urgent in my estimation, is the question of reparations. So we're going to build on that tonight and ask some important questions about the Democratic Party. Are they finally about to do something about reparations? And I'm telling you that for a couple of reasons. The first thing is it's election season. The primaries have started. We've already seen the Iowa caucus. We've already seen Republicans fight for the #1 spot in the nomination for the Republican Party. Of course, it looks very much, as I said last week, like it's going to be Donald Trump. I don't see anyone defeating him. Certainly not Nimarata, also known as Nikki Haley, and certainly not Ron DeSantis. So it's going to be Joe Biden versus Donald Trump unless something unusual happens. So with that in mind, as a Black person, we have to think very carefully about our agenda, because these politicians are going to come to us for our votes. They're going to come to us for our money. They're going to come to us for our endorsements. But the question is, are they going to come to us for our agenda? Now, when it comes to Republicans, I don't expect much. They are going to try to have the kind of creaming effect of taking maybe 10%, 12%, 13% of our voting base. Some polls had Trump getting as high as 19% of Black folk. I don't believe that. Black folk are smarter than that. But I do think that Black folk, if Black men are any indication, and they have been, while we are less likely to vote for Trump than any white demo at all, that doesn't negate the fact that as Black people, a slice of us, very small slice of Black women, and a very a significantly larger number, but still relatively small number of Black men are going to vote for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's not going to offer anything. He's going to offer white male patriarchal authoritarianism. He's not going to do anything that will make us reasonably happy, reasonably supported. So I'm not really going to spend any time talking about Republicans. That's not to say Republicans don't owe us anything. And I'm not telling everybody to go vote Democrat. That's not what I'm doing. I want to be very clear about that. What I am doing, though, is saying that Black folk have to think very carefully if they're coming to the Democratic Party looking for justice. Because it's the Democratic Party that's going to come to you and say, we're your party. It's Joe Biden that's going to go in cities like, or states like South Carolina or Florida, or even Ohio and Pennsylvania, and say, I got your back. Let's vote together and build together. But historically, Democrats have not dealt with the fundamental issues that lead to structural inequality. As Black people in America, we are not simply struggling because of modern day racism. We're not struggling just because teachers look at us differently in school, or jobs don't hire us as much, or insurance companies and credit card companies prey upon us. All of that is accurate. But this country's original sin is racial capitalism. The racialization of people and the exploitation of a certain racialized group, that is to say Black people in the United States, built America. That's what built the railroad companies. That's what built the insurance companies. That's what built the universities. That's what built, obviously, the cotton industry that helped power the American economy, not just in the South, but also all the connected institutions in the North. So as we talk about fixing the condition of Black America, repairing Black America economically, investing in Black America economically, it is not enough to just say we're going to invest in poor people, although we should. It's not enough to say that we're going to invest in housing and urban development, although we should. It's not enough to say we're going to invest in public education. We should. All of those things, if we invest properly, will lift some boats. There's no doubt about that. But we need more than that. We need more than that. We need to repair the damage that was done. We need to repair the damage that was done. We need reparations. And every year, reparations comes up. Every day, reparations comes up. Since I was a teenager, grassroots organizers have been talking about uh, reparations. I remember being in my late teens, when in Cobra, at least in Philadelphia, was a critical organization trying to advocate for reparations. I remember other Black nationalist organizations advocating for reparations, other, radical organizations advocating for reparations. And reparations always was treated like it was an impossibility. It was treated as if it was something that was pie in the sky, and that it was an unreasonable ask and an undoable thing. And so over time, people stopped asking. They started asking for more scaled down dreams and more scaled down policies. But there's always been a critical body of people in the United States, of Black folk in the United States, who have asked for reparations. I support reparations. I've always been a person who supports reparations. And a couple of years ago, when the reparations conversation emerged again, at a moment where we thought the Democratic Party was being dragged to the left, Bernie was out there pulling them to the left, allegedly. Elizabeth Warren was out there pulling them to the left, allegedly. We asked Joe Biden what he thought about reparations. Back in the 70s and in the 80s, Joe Biden didn't support reparations. Joe Biden wasn't indifferent to reparations. Joe Biden had a history of saying he didn't support reparations, and he gave classic white man answers for reparations. He said, basically, like, I didn't have no slaves. As a white man, why should I pay for a Black person who wasn't a slave, right? He gave the classic white man answer, not acknowledging institutional privilege, not acknowledging structural privilege, not acknowledging the way that as a white man, he's already born on first base, and Black people are born not even up at the plate yet because of these structural arrangements that are directly connected to the legacy of slavery. This is just a fact. Now, over time, Joe Biden became more and more and more and more liberal in his articulation. He didn't support busing in the 70s. He warned us about racial jungles. He supported the crime bill. He supported 3 strikes. He supported all the kind of expansion of the carceral state. We know this stuff. Joe Biden has moved, though, and said, I was wrong on this, or I don't know if he's sincere or not, but he's at least saying the right stuff as he moves toward the center. But on reparations, he has yet to make that move. And Joe Biden has been very clear that he's a centrist. When people were saying Black Lives Matter, he was saying Blue Lives Matter, basically. When people said defund police, he wanted to fund police. Joe Biden makes no mistake about who he is. And so when the question of reparations came out, he was not even able to say, I support reparations, but I need to know what form it will take, which is what Bernie said and other people, right? And in many ways, they weren't really supporting reparations. They were just supporting investment, just regular socialist, democratic socialist investments that would just help some Black people. But I'm talking about targeted investments. I'm talking about a justice claim for Black people who are the descendants of American slavery in particular. That's what I'm talking about. Let me be clear and unambiguous about that. And I asked Joe Biden's representatives, his proxies, during interviews, and they were like, no, but he does support the research. He supports the congressional bill. He supported the congressional bill that would not push for reparations, but that would allow for a commission that would study the issue of reparations. It's controversial in this country just to push for the study of the possibility, or a committee that's going to study the possibility of having it. Wow. So Joe Biden is not the person to go to on reparations. Joe Biden is not the person to look to, but the Congress might be. But the Congress might be. But the Congress might be, right? Because when Joe Biden was not pushing for HR 40, which was the bill for the study of reparations, others were saying we must do it right now. It's 38 years on, or now 40 years on the books. Let's do something about it. So why am I mentioning this now? You may be asking, why am I asking now? Well, I said reason number one is it's election time, and we need to be thinking very seriously about what we're going to ask. We need to stop asking for silliness. We need to stop asking for rising tides that lift all of our boats only, although we need that too. We need to ask specifically. We need to ask specifically about reparations. But then there's another issue here. And again, this is not just about who runs for president, because Joe Biden, frankly, has a captured electorate. And he ain't got to do nothing for black people to get black people to vote for him. I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just being real here. But there are elections in every state. There are elections in every state. In New York, Governor Hochul, a state, by the way, that has benefited largely from slavery, authorized a commission to study reparations. Why? Because she had political pressure to do so. Pennsylvania should be doing that. Louisiana should be doing that. Georgia should be doing that. All the states should be doing that. Also in Congress, we should not be electing Democrats into office who are not committed to raising the question of reparations. I want to respond to something in the comments real quick, because sometimes y'all get interesting in your analysis, and y'all accuse me of saying things that aren't true. Tori Williams writes in and says, "Stop lying, misrepresenting Joe, Mark. He never said, 'Why do I have to pay if I never owned slaves?' Never said that." Okay, fair enough. Maybe he didn't. I'll pull up the exact quote that he said and let me know if I'm close, if I'm far, if it's better, or if it's worse. And you let me know. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the exact quote. And this is an interview he did with People Paper in 1975, an interview that Joe Biden did with People Paper in 1975. I'm going to show you the paper just so you don't think I'm making it up, and then we'll get back to the study of reparations. I'm going to bring the paper up first, because I don't want you, it's in the congressional record. It's from October 7th, 1975, okay? So I want you to see the paper first, right? I want you to see the paper, okay? Now I'm going to actually pull up a clearer read of it just so everyone can read it. It's the same paper. You're welcome to look for yourself. It's called the People Paper, October 2nd, 1975. You heard me, right? The People Paper, October 2nd, 1975. You can see here Joe Biden gave an extensive and thoughtful interview about some matters. Now, here's what he actually said, okay? He said, "I do not buy the concept popular in the 60s, which said, 'We have suppressed the black man for 300 years, and the white man is now far ahead in the race for everything our society offers. In order to even the score, we must now give the black man a head start, or even hold the white man back to even the race.' I don't buy that." This is Joe Biden. He said, "I don't feel responsible for the sins of my father and grandfather. I feel responsible for what the situation is today, for the sins of my own generation. I'll be damned if I feel responsible to pay for what happened 300 years ago." Okay, so Tori Williams, you've read this now, right? You've read this now, Tori Williams. You've read this now, Tori Williams, right? You've seen it. You've seen precisely what Joe Biden actually said, word for word. Do you feel like I misrepresented Joe Biden? Tori, I hope you didn't leave. Hope you didn't leave, Tori. Oh, there you are, Tori. You're still here. So I want you to write in the comments, did I misrepresent Joe Biden's position? When you said Joe Biden never said that, do you still maintain that he never said that? Or do you feel like he did say that and you were wrong? Or are you just going to disappear now? You make your own decision in the comments. I want to get back to teaching though. So the other reason why I brought this up today, the other, I think, important reason why it's important to talk about this matter is because Jamal Bowman has recently come out and co-sponsored a bill or called for, a bill in Congress asking for $14 trillion in reparations for African Americans. $14 trillion in reparations. I know, Carmen, you said he was trolling, don't derail the convo. I wanted people to know that Joe Biden said that. So that's actually important because I want people to understand deep down in the psyche that Joe Biden says all of that stuff, right? So Jamal Bowman has said that $14 trillion reparations bill should be coming through to Black people in the United States. This is an important bill. This is an important ask. Bowman is one of 9 sponsors of HR 414. HR 414 is an important bill that came forward in the 2023-24 congressional, 118th Congress. It was introduced in the House last May. And this bill, as you see, and I won't go through all the pieces of it, but it begins by saying, recognizing that the United States has a moral and legal obligation to provide reparations for the enslavement of Africans and its lasting harm on the lives of millions of Black people in the United States. And then in the resolution, it breaks down not just the moral and legal obligation, but all of the factors, right? The federal government historically failed to recognize Black dignity and humanity. Reparations are defined as a victim-centered process by which survivors of atrocities and serious human rights violations and their descendants have the right to seek restitution, compensation, rehabilitation, satisfaction, and guarantees of non-repetition for past and ongoing harms. So they go on to define reparations. They go on to talk about the international legal obligation of reparations. They go and talk about what the government is responsible for, and they go on to talk about the history and the ugliness and the viciousness of the slave trade in the United States. They've talked about the complicity of U.S. heads of state. James Polk trading enslaved people from the Oval Office. 10 of the first 12 presidents enslaved Black people, and so forth and so on. And then they go on to talk about the lasting impact of slavery. And they really make a trek from the 17th century all the way until now, and they implicate all of the civil institutions, all of the private and public spheres, all of the government, all the things that have happened. They also invoke comparisons to Japanese internment and other places where people were made whole from their justice claim. So there's a very clear ask here from Jamal Bowman. And Jamal Bowman is representing the squad. Jamal Bowman represents the squad. He represents the liberal wing, the leftist wing, the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America wing of the Democratic Party. He represents the Working Families Party wing of the Democratic Party. These are the radicals. These are the extremists, the progressives at least. They're not radical necessarily, but they're progressive. And so Jamal, when he comes up and puts forward this bill, he's doing some important work, right? He's asking for a $14 trillion reparations bill. For him, that would include free college education at 107 HBCUs throughout the country, and other things. But that seems to be at the top of this bill. I'd like to interview Jamal and talk to Jamal to get more specifics about what that would look like. He seems to be talking also not just about investing in education, which can be misleading and deceptive and a way of avoiding actually paying Black people, but he also talks about the importance of cash payouts. In particular, specifically, he says it might be possible. He's saying $333,000 per person should be given out for the 42 million African Americans in the United States that make up 12% of the population. I'm gonna say that again. He's saying that you take all the Black African Americans, to use his language, in the United States, 42 million, and you take 12%, and they make up 12% of the population, by the way. And he's saying you give each of them $333,000. He's saying that could be paid over decades, though. You could pay it over 5 or 10 or 20 years. You could break it out into monthly checks. He said there are creative ways to do the right thing and do what needs to be done, quote unquote. He said there were 246 years of free labor that produced trillions or hundreds of trillions of dollars for the U.S. economy. The economy wouldn't exist in the way it does today if slavery hadn't built it. So this is important. we're now 35 years, 36 years after John Conyers, the late great John Conyers, rest in peace, introduced a federal commission to study reparations. The bill was tabled, it's been pending, it was reintroduced last year. It dies on the vine. The efforts for this die on the vine. But now we have someone from the squad who is saying, yo, wait a minute. We have an opportunity now. We have a clear vision, a clear plan, a clear analysis, and a clear ask. The question is, and the question that I framed this conversation in is, are Democrats finally serious about this? Well, the White House isn't. They continue to dip and duck and dodge the same way Joe Biden refused to answer my question that I posed to him on the campaign trail in 2020. It's now 2024, and he still ain't answering it directly and clearly. The Democrats in Congress have largely avoided the question of reparations. Jamal Bowman is a voice in the wilderness, even among the squad, who I love. And I asked Ilhan Omar, one of my favorite members of Congress, and she said she supported reparations for American descendants of slavery. That's an important question. But most of them haven't said anything about it. And they certainly haven't used any capital, any political capital for it. They haven't put any skin in the game. They haven't made any compromises or sacrifices for it. They're not campaigning on it. But I put that on us. Politicians don't do anything unless they're pressured to, unfortunately. So I need all of us, not just to pressure Joe Biden. Forget Joe Biden for a second. I need us to pressure every governor, every member of Congress, the House and Senate, every member of our state legislatures, every mayor, to have some investment in the question of reparations. Even if right here in Philadelphia, when candidates were running, I would not endorse a mayoral candidate in Philadelphia until they said that they supported reparations and developing a commission to fight for reparations. So we have to do this. We have to do this. Now, some people are saying it's an unwinnable fight. They said gay marriage was an unwinnable fight until it wasn't. They said legalization of marijuana was an unwinnable fight until it wasn't. They said that fighting to undo Roe v. Wade was an unwinnable fight. And we just saw in the last year that Roe v. Wade, affirmative action, everything went out the window because of a long-standing, protracted grassroots struggle from Republican right-wing ideologues. They said, we want this and we're going to fight. And we don't care if it takes 30 or 40 years. We have to have that same commitment to reparations. But if we continue to allow Democrats to pat us on the head and say, hey, we like you more than those racist Republicans, then that'll never happen. We need to apply pressure. I'm not telling y'all to vote Republican. I'm not one of those people. What I am telling you to do is vote for people who have justice on their agenda. And if that's the hardcore left, great. If it's not, let's find the people who meet our agenda and who meet our issues, and let's be practical at the same time. I'm not saying let's burn the country. Let me not put it that way. I'm not saying let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. But let's not make BS excuses for Democrats persistently avoiding our issues, persistently ignoring our needs. Is this their way of swaying black men's votes from third parties like Cornel West? I'm not sure who they is, but if you're saying Democrats are proposing more radical or progressive legislation so that people don't vote green or vote for Cornel West, then good for Cornel West. That means that what our brother Cornel is doing is right. He's forcing politicians to address our needs. That's why you run. That's why you press people. Now, I don't want an outcome where Donald Trump ends up being president. I ain't gonna lie to you. But I do want an outcome where politicians on all sides of the aisle are pressured to meet our needs, not because they love us, because they have to. Slavery was a long-term system for 244 years. Carpe Diem writes and says, any monetary payments should also be lifelong and long-term, maybe a monthly payment. Yeah, I think that's the most practical way of doing that payment. Again, there are commissions that have studied this. There are experts, people from Sandy Darity we go down a list of people who have studied the issue of reparations and how it could be operationalized. I'm not an expert on the weeds of this, but what I know is it's doable. But we have to make people do it, right? There's Carpe Diem saying neither Congress nor Joe or Joe are serious about reparations, I knew the Democrats would propose some study commission nonsense to keep building prisons while the GOP just build prisons. That's right. Again, this is a two-winged bird, and both of them are screwing us over. Both of them are screwing us over. Thank you, David. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your generous donation. So at the end of the day, the analysis is clear. Democrats are not serious about reparations. Jamal Bowman is serious about reparations. 2 or 3 other people are serious about reparations. I know Ilhan Omar will probably stand in solidarity. I suspect AOC will stand in solidarity. I suspect Rashida Tlaib will stand in solidarity. There are some who will, and I'm not being shady. I'm just naming a few. But we have to create the conditions where they will all do it. People say, but this is financially unfeasible. We can't afford this kind of circumstance. Here's the thing, and Jamal Bowman said this as well. One of the things we learned during the pandemic was the possibilities of the state. They said we couldn't do abolition. And then suddenly, when their security guards, when their COs, when their police officers were getting COVID and dying, tragically, I don't want anybody to die, they said, oh, maybe we don't have to arrest as many people. Oh, maybe we can let some of these low threat offenders out of the prison. They started decarcerating and excarcerating because it benefited them. Suddenly abolition made sense. When the American economy was crumbling, when American capitalism was on quicksand, oh, now all of a sudden, PPP loans, they gave $1 trillion to the to American corporations. They gave $1 trillion to American people, right? I write about this in my book, We Still Here. The numbers might be a little fuzzy in my head because it's been a couple of years, but the US government gave checks, they gave stimulus checks, they gave PPP loans, they gave corporate injections. They found trillions of dollars, literally trillions of dollars, to save American capitalism. And some of y'all are like, well, how do we know who to give the checks to? How do we figure it out? The same way the US figured out who to give stimulus checks to. When American capitalism was on the line, they found names, they found addresses, they created systems, they made it work. We can make it work now if we have the political will to do it, and that will come from political pressure from the people on the ground. It's that simple. Now, let me be also clear. Jamal Bowman and some of the other people who proposed this bill have proposed it for African Americans. I have no problem with an economic stimulus plan and a cash injection into African American communities across the board. But reparations in this country must be in response to and exclusively targeted toward descendants of slavery in the United States. It does not mean that people in the Caribbean don't have a justice claim. It doesn't mean that people in Haiti and Cuba don't have a justice claim. It doesn't mean that people in Guyana don't have a justice claim. It doesn't mean that those people shouldn't get reparations, but then there are organizations and institutions like CARICOM and others whose job it is to provide that. But when I'm talking about reparations, I don't think it necessarily needs to be for all of the 14% of Black people who identify as African American here. And again, I've spent the last couple weeks going back and forth with people about how we understand our global community, about Pan-Africanism, about how we identify as Black versus African American. And I don't necessarily agree with everybody in terms of how we form community or how we fashion our identities. But I do believe on the question of reparations, I'm going to say it one more time, on the question of reparations, this is a justice claim and the repair for damage done for the descendants of American slavery. And that's who it needs to focus on. And the bills in Congress haven't done that. So that's another thing that we need to hash out. But look, if we're in a space where we are deciding who the reparations money is going to, and if we're hashing out the contours of a reparations bill, and we're talking about how to rally our politicians toward a popular move or popularly accepted reparations project, then we've already won. So I don't want to shut down conversation with my specifics. I want to expand conversation by saying this is possible, but we have to do the work. But what is non-negotiable is that reparations can't just be a rising tide lifts all boats. Just because it's coming from a liberal or a progressive doesn't mean that it's any better than when a Republican does it, to the extent that we need targeted investment in our community. It can't mean, oh, we built for-profit institutions, or we dumped some more Title I money into Black neighborhoods for schools, and that'll make your lives better. No, we need cash. We need structural investment. We need economic investment. We need direct cash payments. We need all of it. And the we, again, for the last time, is the descendants of American slavery. We can do this, y'all. Anyway, family, we're going to keep this conversation going as the election season comes up. We're going to be talking a lot about the issues that Black folk need, the issues that Black folk must demand, and how we can get there. Let's have that conversation right here on the Marc Lamont Hill official channel. Hit the like button so the algorithms know that you rock with us and what we do, so we can expand the reach of the content. Also hit the subscribe button, because I would love for you to get this content on a regular basis. In fact, hit that little bell that gives you an update every time we put out new content. You can get a live update. And of course, if you want, you can join the channel, which we always appreciate, because by joining the channel, you become a monthly supporter of what we do. And it allows us to build and grow the channel. Shout out to William Stevenson, who just did that. He joined the channel. We appreciate it. We're grateful. The more people that do that, the more we're able to build more studio space, build a new studio, to create more content, to have more voices, like the great Mumia Abu-Jamal, who is now has a show with me called The Classroom in the Cell on this very channel. So let's do all of that. And of course, you can donate directly to the show and to the channel by going to Cash App and just doing the $MLHTV. Again, those resources are used specifically for the purpose of building content, of building a base of producers, of expanding our editing capability, of releasing more videos, and of adding more voices to the platform. So we're going to do all of that every single day with your support. I want to thank you, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace. That's love the yo. I got the Kappa in me today. Peace. This is the peace side. It's also, I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. See y'all later.